He had been married 55 years. His wife died suddenly. And all the routines, everything they shared, 55 years, several lifetimes for some. He went through struggles, particularly at night. People well-wishing brought casseroles and things to support him, but he was so alone. The one thing that kept him going was the reunion he would experience in resurrection with his beloved. But one of the people in his church said, as he expressed that thought, you better put away that idea. Because right here in Luke 20, it says you're not going to be married in heaven. So forget that notion. Just put that aside. You're just being emotional. 55 years. I talked to my friend who's a pastor, and this man, as he's driving to the church, talking to his minister about this conversation, just broke down, pulled over, and sobbed. Will she not know me in heaven? It seems cruel. That's my hope. If she doesn't know me in heaven as who we've been in life, this love of my life, then what's the point? I remember I was in first grade. The teacher said, class, what I want you to do is make somebody in your family, we're going to get those gift wrapping paper rolls, you're going to create a felt kind of person, and then you're going to say it show and tell who it is and why. And like in the Christmas story, with Ralphie and the BB gun, I was excited. Most of my class was like, another assignment. I was excited because back home, my mom was round and large, and I was going to be a big brother. Now, when the class talked about siblings, there were only 2 of us in the whole class who did not have older or younger brothers or sisters. I was one of them. And in my neighborhood, I was the only kid who didn't have a brother or sister. So I was excited. I could not wait. I remember making my little brother and describing it to my class. And as Mom got further and further along, I was excited. We were talking about the baby. I was, reading to the belly. And I remember getting off the bus and running home, running into the door one day, say, Mom, I'm home. And then my grandma's there, and my Uncle Jim and Uncle Joe and all my relatives. And something's not right. They all look worried, afraid, sad. My dad says, come on, get your stuff. We're going to go see your mom. And I thought it was weird. Mom's not there. And as the nurse led us into the neonatal unit, and I came to the bedside of my sister, Kate. She's beautiful. But then there were all these wires and monitors and breathing tube, and she's struggling to breathe. And I remember as a big brother thinking, what can I do? Dad? Is she dying? God? We didn't even get a chance. This isn't fair. A week later, she was gone. And I remember not much about the funeral. I do remember some people whispering, we're not sure she was baptized. Dad, what are they talking about? They're wondering whether she's baptized. What difference does that make? Well, some people believe that she can't be with God. What? What do you mean she can't be with God? I didn't get a further explanation. 30 years later, I'm in an office standing before a father who is breaking down. His son 26 years old, had just been recently married, a young child, 1-year-old, curly-haired, beautiful kid. But his son had been struggling with depression, severe depression. Pharmacist. Could not see the beauty. Even his son could not bring smiles to him, so deep was it. We got the call by his own hand, and he's weeping. Pastor, my church growing up told me there's no hope for him to be with God. He died cursed by his own hand in sin. That's what the church told me. Is that true? So, when I read a text like the Sadducees coming to Jesus after he's already run a gauntlet of questions, and they're asking him a question about what happens next when they don't believe in a next, my first reaction is honestly anger. Because we still play these games in the church about pretending to know what the God of life is about with our human understandings of the rules we think God has to play by. Was Augustine great in the church historian? Sure. But his ideas on original sin, that somehow a baby who hasn't even talked yet, oh, it's a lesser hell. They're in the lobby where it's nicer. Give me a break. Give me a break. Or that somehow somebody who's so caught in depression, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually physically cannot see the beautiful things God's made in them or who they are. They're stuck. You're telling me that that's game over for them? God just says, sorry, you had your chance in this earthly life, your quarter's run out, the game's over. Well, some pastors will say, yeah, that's exactly right. Call me a heathen. But I'd say, hang on. Look at Jesus in the Gospels. A man sitting there at church and synagogue, he's got a withered hand, and Jesus heals him. But the problem is, it's a Sabbath. You're breaking the law. Yeah, but this guy can use his hand again. You're breaking the law. That's not the rules. A righteous person wouldn't break the Sabbath. Are you kidding me? Which one of you had a dog that got hurt, an animal, a donkey or a sheep that fell in a ditch and broke its leg? You wouldn't help it in that moment? A kid who's sick? So the laws of work apply, but when it's for you, but when it's for somebody else, and God, like a freight train, is bringing healing to them, or joy, or restoration, that is not okay. Are we really going to define the powers of God by human limitations and weakness? Let me say that one more time. Are we really going to define the power of God, resurrection power, life power, by our own inabilities and weakness? The Sadducees come to Jesus. They're the third group to ask him questions. Now, does anybody know what a Sadducee is before we get rolling on this train? Sadducee? Anybody? No. Okay. All right. Thanks for your honesty. So there's 4 main groups. Religious, theological beliefs, political beliefs differ. You've got Essenes. Essenes believe basically the world's gone to heck in a handbasket. We're going to get out of society, make our own faith-based society, and we're going to wait for God to come because everything else has gone to pot. You have the Zealots who say, we've gotten the short end of the stick. The Romans have come. They've conquered us. We're going to fight back. We're patriots. We're going to lead the Messianic age to come, and we're going to overthrow these Romans and bring back the age of God by force. We're going to fight it out. You have the Pharisees, probably the most commonly known from our biblical readings. The Pharisees say, hey, yeah, life is bad. Most of this is around the Romans. The Romans occupy us. We're losing our faith identity because of the Gentile influence. They're trying to westernize us, trying to get us to speak Greek, trying to get our kids to learn Gentile ways. And if it's just in this earthly life, that's not enough. There's got to be something more to come. If we can't get past these Romans now, then in the next life we will. So they believe in a resurrection. They also believe in keeping the faith as close as they can so that God will answer their prayers. The Sadducees are the last. They're the party that has power, property, and prestige. They're the leader, the elite class of Israel. They are unique in that they believe their Bible, the sacred texts, are just the Torah, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, if those words aren't making sense. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That's the Bible to them. If Moses or the priest didn't say it, it doesn't count. All right? They also say that, hey, these Romans, Rome isn't so bad. We've got good roads, we've got better sanitation, the power of their armies, and they're good for business. We're doing pretty well. Can't we all just get along? These Romans are okay. Come on, guys. Because they're profiting from it. So, the Sadducees say, God works in this life. There's nothing in the books of Moses about life after death or resurrection. And besides, it's not just about what comes next. It's about how does God work in this world and how is God just and a judge. And we believe, Sadducees, that if you're so focused on what comes in the afterlife, you could run the danger of being no good in this earthly life at all to God. Got your head in the clouds, worried about, going to heaven, but in this earthly life, you're not really doing anything to please God, on the positive light for the Sadducees. But, I digress. They asked Jesus, tell us about this resurrection, which we don't believe in. It's like, asking an agnostic who asks, if God is all-powerful and almighty, can God make a rock that God can't move? The Sadducees asked Jesus, tell us about marriage in the afterlife. Let's give you a hypothetical. There's 7 brothers. The 7 brothers, the eldest marries a woman, and in his married life, they don't have any kids, and he dies. Then, by Levitical rite of Levite marriage, his brother takes her as his wife. What? We'll get to that in a second. And they have no kids. And so we go to the 3rd brother and the 4th brother. And by the time the 4th brother, he's like, I'm not sure what she's feeding these other brothers, but I don't know, sure. So they go through all 7, and they all die, and then she dies. So, Lord, whose wife is she in heaven? Which we don't believe in. So what is going on here? What is? This seems kind of weird, right? I mean, any younger brothers in here? You worried about? All right. So in Deuteronomy, Jesus goes to their sacred understanding of the text. All right, you want to talk the Torah? Let's talk Torah. So they start to talk about a hypothetical from Deuteronomy 25 that says, if the eldest brother dies, his next oldest brother has to take on the duty of a husband to his wife so that that oldest brother's name will not be lost to the tribes of Israel. Now, what's going on here? When the people were coming into the promised land, God said, okay, there's 12 tribes. Each tribe is going to get X amount of land. Tribe, clans within the tribe, families within the clans. So it's economic. It's social status. If this hypothetical wife, after brother number 1, decides, I'm in the clan of Dan, I'm in the tribe of Dan, but I'm going to go marry a guy from Ishkar, what happens to family's land? Well, the land that God gave to Dan for this family now goes to another tribe. So the equity of the God-given gifts of land is changed. The power dynamics of the tribes of Israel are changed. The family dynamics of Israel are changed. Can't have that. We have to have it kept in our tribe, our family, our ability to survive off the land God has promised to us. Then, if you keep reading in Deuteronomy 25, it's kind of fun. It gets a little bit more adventurous. If the guy, let's say the brother says, oh, no, I'm not, thanks, but no, I'm not marrying my sister-in-law. She can go to the elders and say, hey, this brother is not fulfilling his duty to me or to the family. He's shaming us. So the elders can go, hey, why aren't you going to do this? It's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm out. Then she has a recourse. She can go, take the sandal off of his foot, throw it at him, spit in his face, and say, this is what happens to a guy who takes off and doesn't fulfill the sandal in Israel. What? Yeah. It's in there. By the way, check out verse 11 if you want to get a little more exciting. It's fun. So basically, they're saying, hypothetically, let's give Jesus a question he can't answer that makes any sense. And the reason why they do that is to just make him look foolish. It'd be like going to a ghost hunter, thing, and you don't believe in anything supernatural at all. I'm like, yeah, how do the ghosts like, to haunt the bathroom more than the kitchen? You're like, this is a ridiculous question, but I just want to see what kind of ridiculous answer I get. Because they want to gain their own popularity in front of the crowds, just like they want Jesus to be discredited. Like the chief priests and elders who just a few moments ago had asked him, hey, do you have to pay taxes to Caesar or not? He asked him for a coin. You remember the story. Whose picture's on the coin? It's Caesar's. All right, give the coin back to Caesar, and then give everything else back to God. So Jesus says some interesting things in reply to this crazy question. First, he says, God is a God of the living. You want to talk Torah? Let's look at the Torah. When Moses comes to the burning bush, surely you Sadducees know that story, and don't call me Shirley. God tells Moses that he is the God of, present tense, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, those three guys are long since dead by the time Moses is alive. But when God talks to Moses, it's, I am their God right now. Hear the distinction? You think they're dead, Moses, because you buried their bodies back in Canaan. I'm telling you they stand before me today because I'm a God of life. Second thing he talks about is he says we're a resurrection people. And you don't understand the power of God or the desire of God to bring life abundant. She is not a part of some kind of earthly, transactional, she's not somebody's property in heaven. She's not tied to the land in heaven. She is a daughter of the living God, body, soul, and mind, and a light before the one who has made her. So this idea that she belongs to anyone, nobody belongs to anyone, as a means of power, a balance of definition of who they are, everybody is loved as they are, uniquely and powerfully made. Doesn't mean we don't recognize each other, doesn't mean we don't love each other or know one another. But this idea that you're concocting this idea that is limited by human understanding of how life works is where the ridiculous lies, not in the question. So I want to say to you, this day, any of you who have struggled, when the church trips over itself, when you're struggling, when your family is devastated by a suicide or by a stillbirth or by a tragic loss that you didn't see coming, and you wrestle with what comes next, I want you to look again and again at Jesus' ministry. At every turn, blind Bartimaeus, The Pharisees are worried about, again, Jesus breaking the law, healing. Who sinned that this guy's blind? Jesus says, no, it's not about that. It's about this guy was blind and now he can see because God is visible in him. The man with the withered hand. Every turn, Jesus is pointing to a God who restores, who heals, who binds, who gives life. A God of life. God is a God of the living. In this house, death never has the last word. Is she baptized? About 20 years ago, I was working on a road crew before preaching. We were paving, asphalting streets. We had to get up about 5 o'clock in the morning because it gets too hot. Your feet, your sandals start sticking to the, you're not throwing them or spitting at anybody, but they're starting to stick, so you gotta get out there early behind the truck and you're, smoothing things out. And I normally set my alarm for about 5, but on this day, I had a dream. But it wasn't like any dream I've ever had. I heard a voice. You're going to think I'm crazy. I don't care. And though she never spoke to me in my earthly life, I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that it was my sister. And there was another presence. First I thought it might be an angel, but then no, I thought, it's God. And I remember thinking and seeing myself laying there in bed. And I'm thinking, this is not like a normal dream, because you can't be talking to me, you're dead. Honest to God, thought went through my mind. This isn't real. I'm imagining this. But it was real. And I said to God, can I ask my sister a question? And there was no answer, no words. It was just in my mind a permission. Go ahead. I said, Katie, thank God for the Catholics who taught me to pray to my loved ones, because we sometimes don't understand the saints in the Protestant side of the church. We fear that. But I used to talk to my sister all the time. Katie, do you hear me when I pray to you? Are you there? And it wasn't just her voice. Have you ever been to the ocean and you go into the water and a big wave comes and hits your whole body? Or you're at a concert and the subwoofer's like, or you're driving the car and somebody's booming next to you and your body's shaking because of reverberations. It was like 1,000 voices. And I heard and felt this yes. And it hit my toes. And it washed up to me, and I woke up. And I thought, what the heck just happened? About 2 minutes later, the alarm goes off. And I thought, wow. What comes next? All I can tell you is that we serve a God who in Christ promises he's a God of the living. Death is just a stop sign on the road, but then you keep driving. In my Father's house are many rooms. I go there to prepare a place for you so that where I am, you can be too. And I'm coming back for you. Don't worry, I got you, kid. No matter what. God of life, now and always, for all the saints whose light still shines. Amen.